He wore more medals than he earned. He commanded more respect than he deserved. And when declassified FBI files finally surfaced, the world discovered that Lord Louis Mountbatten, Britain's golden boy, was hiding secrets darker than anyone imagined. If you're ready to uncover the shocking truth about one of Britain's most controversial royals, smash that like button right now and subscribe to History Exposed TV. We're exposing the hidden stories they don't want you to know, and you won't want to miss what comes next. The privileged prince who never earned his stripes. Born in 1900 into the illustrious Battenberg family, Prince Louis entered the world dripping with privilege. His godmother was none other than Queen Victoria herself, his maternal great-grandmother. His godfather, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, the last emperor before the Bolshevik Revolution swept him away. Young Louis spent his childhood visiting Russian palaces, becoming infatuated with his cousin, Grand Duchess Maria. He kept her photograph at his bedside until the day he died. A romantic obsession that lasted his entire life. For the first decade of his existence, Louis was homeschooled within the gilded walls of royal estates, never mingling with common children or experiencing life beyond aristocratic circles. At age 10, he transferred to the prestigious Lockers Park boarding school before attending the Royal Naval College just weeks shy of his 13th birthday. The young prince was being groomed for naval greatness, following in the footsteps of his father, who would eventually become First Sea Lord. When World War I erupted and anti-German hysteria consumed Britain, King George V scrubbed the royal family clean of their German heritage. The House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha became Windsor. Battenberg became the anglicised Mountbatten. At just 16, young Louis enlisted in the Royal Navy as a midshipman aboard the battlecruiser HMS Lion, seeing combat action in August 1916 during a naval engagement. He later transferred to HMS Queen Elizabeth toward the war's conclusion, specialising in naval communications, a field that would define his early career. The master of disaster. Mountbatten's rise through naval ranks had less to do with competence and more to do with connections. He accompanied the future King Edward VI on royal tours to Australia, Japan, and India during the 1920s, cementing relationships with future monarchs. These tours proved invaluable for his career advancement, opening doors that remained closed to officers of actual merit. He even became the beloved honorary grandfather to the current King Charles III, encouraging the young prince to live the bachelor life he himself never abandoned. In July 1920, married the glamorous heiress and socialite Edwina Ashley in a wedding that captivated British society. Their honeymoon took them across Europe and North America, where they rubbed shoulders with Hollywood royalty. They even starred in a Charlie Chaplin silent film called Nice and Friendly that never saw theatrical release. But beneath the glittering surface, their marriage was anything but conventional. Mountbatten himself later admitted that he and his wife spent all their married lives getting into other people's beds. Edwina became notorious for her string of affairs. At least 18 lovers, including Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and singer Leslie Hutchinson. She once gifted Hutchinson a jewel-encrusted sheath for his manhood, a scandal that shocked even London's liberal social circles. One night, a drunken Mountbatten allegedly stumbled into a London restaurant and lamented to the bandleader that his wife was being intimate with another man at that very moment. Their marriage was an open secret of infidelity, depravity, and mutual betrayal. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Mountbatten's fascination with technology and gadgets led him to enroll in the Portsmouth Signal School in 1924. He briefly studied electronics at the Royal Naval College in Greenwich, positioning himself as a communications expert. In 1934, he finally landed his first command of a naval destroyer, not through demonstrated ability, but through royal connections and family influence. Incompetence dressed in medals. When World War II erupted in 1939, Mountbatten took command of the HMS Kelly. The vessel quickly earned a reputation, but not for heroism. Mountbatten's bungling leadership earned him the nickname, the Master of Disaster. He sailed the Kelly directly into a minefield, then rammed it into another British ship in a display of incompetence that would have ended any other officer's career. The Kelly saw action in Norway, the English Channel, and the Mediterranean, but its commander's reckless decisions consistently endangered his crew. In May 1941, during the Battle of Crete, German dive bombers finally sent the Kelly to the bottom of the Mediterranean. Mountbatten and many crew members survived, but his ship's reputation for misfortune followed him. Yet somehow, Mountbatten continued failing upward. In April 1942, Winston Churchill appointed him Chief of Combined Operations, a position of tremendous responsibility. That August, Mountbatten orchestrated the disastrous Deep Raid, an amphibious assault on the German-occupied French coast that became one of the war's bloodiest fiascos. Of the 6,086 men who landed on the beaches, 3,623 were killed, wounded, or captured within 10 brutal hours. Canadian forces bore the brunt of this catastrophe, suffering a devastating 68% casualty rate. Bodies littered the beaches as German machine guns mowed down Allied soldiers who had been sent on what many historians now consider a suicide mission. Despite this horrific failure that cost thousands of lives, Mountbatten was promoted to Supreme Allied Commander of Southeast Asia in October 1943. He proposed multiple reckless amphibious assaults throughout his tenure, but fortunately, experienced planning staff sidelined most of his dangerous ideas before they could claim more lives. At the 1945 Potsdam Conference, Mountbatten embarrassed himself by trying to impress Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. His strategy? Boasting about his connections to the Russian imperial family, the very rulers Stalin and the Bolsheviks had helped overthrow and execute. The attempt at bonding fell completely flat, showcasing Mountbatten's tone-deaf arrogance. The partition that scarred a subcontinent. After the war, British leadership wanted Mountbatten out of their hair. On February 20th, 1947, they shipped him off to India as the last viceroy, tasked with overseeing the colony's transition to independence. His instructions were clear: preserve a united India and avoid partition at all costs. Mountbatten was given until June 1948 to complete this monumental task. But impatient to return to Britain and advance his naval career, he unilaterally moved the deadline forward by 10 months, to August 1947. Those 10 months would prove catastrophic. His advisors favoured a gradual transfer of power, but Mountbatten arrogantly overruled them, convinced his solution was superior. Despite passionate opposition from Mahatma Gandhi and other Indian leaders who pleaded for unity, Mountbatten forged ahead with partition, dividing the subcontinent into Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. Gandhi had even proposed a compromise government led by Muslim leader Muhammad Ali Jinnah that could have preserved unity. But Mountbatten never bothered to relay the offer to Jinnah. His ego and impatience overrode diplomacy and wisdom. On the night of August 15, 1947, as partition became official, Mountbatten sat alone in his study at the Viceroy's mansion, feeling himself the most powerful man on earth. Meanwhile, outside his palace walls, millions of Muslims fled India while Hindus abandoned Pakistan in terror. The rushed, botched partition triggered mass migrations, horrific violence, and genocidal slaughter. More than 1 million people died in communal massacres. 15 million were displaced from their ancestral homes. Countless others were maimed, mutilated, and scarred for life in atrocities that haunt both nations to this day. Mountbatten's hasty partition left critical issues unresolved. Most disastrously, the status of Kashmir, which remains contested between India and Pakistan and has sparked multiple wars. While some Indian nationalists appreciated his role in granting independence, Pakistan has despised him ever since, viewing him as fundamentally hostile to their nation. His decision to accelerate the timeline purely for personal career advancement directly caused immeasurable suffering. The FBI knew everything. In 2019, declassified FBI files revealed bombshell secrets about Mountbatten that confirmed decades of whispered rumors. The Bureau had monitored him since 1944 when he became Supreme Allied Commander in Southeast Asia. American author Elizabeth Delaporte told FBI agents in a documented interview that Mountbatten and his wife were persons of extremely low morals, whose behavior shocked even sophisticated observers. The files contained far more disturbing allegations beyond simple adultery. According to the documents, Mountbatten was known to be a homosexual with a perversion for young boys. Sources claimed he was an unfit man to direct any sort of military operations because of this condition. The FBI took these allegations seriously enough to maintain an active file on a high-ranking Allied commander during wartime. In 2022, a man came forward with allegations that Mountbatten had sexually assaulted him at a Belfast children's home when he was just 11 years old, decades earlier. Legal action was launched against multiple state institutions in Northern Ireland for failing to protect vulnerable children. The allegations painted a portrait of predatory behavior that spanned decades and crossed international borders. A violent end to a controversial life. After retiring from active duty in the 1970s, Mountbatten purchased Classybon Castle, a summer home in Mullaghmore, County Sligo, Northwest Ireland, near the Northern Ireland border. He spent his declining years fishing aboard his boat, Shadow V, seemingly oblivious to the danger. But his proximity to the border made him an easy target during the Troubles, the violent conflict between Irish Republicans seeking unification and British forces trying to maintain control. The IRA had been planning the assassination for months, viewing Mountbatten as a symbol of British imperialism and oppression. On the night of August 26, 1979, IRA volunteer Thomas McMahon snuck aboard Shadow V while it was moored and planted a radio-controlled bomb containing 50 pounds of gelignite explosive hidden beneath the deck. The next morning, August 27, 1979, Mountbatten embarked on a fishing trip with family members and friends. Just a few hundred yards from shore, McMahon detonated the device remotely. The explosion was so powerful that an eyewitness described the scene. The boat was there one instant, and the next it was like a pile of matchsticks on the water. Mountbatten, age 79, died instantly from the blast. His 14-year-old grandson Nicholas Snatchbull and 15-year-old local boat hand Paul Maxwell were also killed immediately. The 83-year-old Dowager Lady Brauburn, Nicholas's grandmother, died from her catastrophic injuries the following day. 4 others aboard the boat, including Mountbatten's daughter Lady Brauburn,
suffered serious injuries that required extensive hospitalization. The Provisional IRA claimed responsibility within hours, issuing a statement calling it a discriminate act to bring to the attention of the English people the continuing occupation of our country. Thomas McMahon was arrested at a checkpoint, tried for murder, and sentenced to life imprisonment, though he was released in 1998 under the Good Friday Agreement. The fraudulent legacy. Lord Louis Mountbatten accumulated titles, medals, and honors throughout his life. Viscount, Earl, First Sea Lord, and Chief of the Defense Staff. Newspapers celebrated him as a war hero and statesman. Yet his actual competence rarely matched his accolades. He failed upward through privilege and connections, leaving catastrophe in his wake. The Deep Bay disaster that killed thousands, the bloody partition of India that caused over 1 million deaths, and a personal life filled with scandal and depravity. The FBI files that surfaced decades after his death revealed what many had whispered, but few could prove. Behind the medals and titles stood a man of extremely low morals, whose influence on history was far more destructive than heroic. His legacy remains controversial, celebrated by some, reviled by others, but impossible to ignore. Don't let this shocking story end here. History Exposed TV brings you the untold truths the establishment doesn't want revealed. Hit that subscribe button, slam the notification bell, and join our community of truth seekers. Share this video with everyone who needs to know the real story behind Britain's most catastrophic royal. The truth doesn't hide itself. We expose it. See you in the next episode.